Don't open the door. I whisper to myself for the third time as the knocking echoes through my apartment like a heartbeat I can't shut off, steady, relentless, impossible to ignore, and I already know who it is because no one else would stand outside my place at 2 in the morning like this. No one else would keep coming back after what he did. After the way he looked me in the eye and tore me apart in front of a room full of people who used to respect me. And yet here he is again, Lucas Hayes. The man who ruined my life. The man who won't leave me alone. And I hate him. I do. I hate the sound of his voice even before he speaks. Hate the way my chest tightens anyway when I hear him say my name through the door like it still belongs to him. Ethan, please, he says, softer this time. Like that word could undo everything. Like it could erase the memory of that night. The lights too bright, the crowd too close. The moment everything shifted and I realized I wasn't just embarrassed, I was exposed, completely and utterly exposed because of him. Because of the one person I trusted not to cross that line. And now he's here, again, like he has been every night for the past week, showing up like clockwork, knocking like he thinks persistence is the same as forgiveness. Like if he waits long enough I'll just give in and open the door, but I don't move, I can't. My hand hovers inches from the handle, and I swear I can feel him on the other side. Close enough that if I reached out I'd probably touch him through the wood. And that thought alone makes something twist in my chest in a way I don't want to examine too closely, because I don't get to feel anything for him anymore. Not after what he did, not after the way he walked away like it meant nothing, like I meant nothing. So why is he back? Why does he keep coming back? And why does he sound like that? Like he's the one who's breaking. Like he's the one standing out there in the cold with nothing left to lose. I press my forehead against the door, eyes shut tight, trying to block him out. Trying to remember every reason I have to hate him. Every word, every look, every second of that night burned into my memory like a warning sign I should never ignore. And still, I don't tell him to leave, because some part of me is waiting, listening, counting the seconds between each knock, wondering how long he'll stay this time, wondering what he'll say next, wondering if tonight is the night I finally open the door and let him in, and hating myself for even thinking about it. I do not answer him, not at first, because if I open my mouth I might say something I cannot take back, something that sounds too much like I still care, and I refuse to give him that, not after everything. So I stay silent, leaning against the door like it is the only thing keeping me standing while his presence seeps through every inch of the space between us. And for a second I think maybe he will leave. Maybe tonight is the night he finally gives up, but then I hear it, not knocking this time, just the faint sound of his hand resting against the door, like he is mirroring me on the other side, like he knows exactly where I am without seeing me. And that thought sends a sharp pulse through my chest that I do not want to name. I know you are there, he says quietly, not accusing, not demanding, just certain, and I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding, my fingers curling against the wood as if I could push him away without opening it. You should go. I finally manage. My voice rough, thinner than I want it to be, and there is a pause, a long one, the kind that stretches until it almost hurts. I will, he says, but he does not move. I can tell, I can feel it, and something about that makes my frustration spike, sharp and immediate. Then go. I snap, louder this time, because anger is easier than anything else. Anger is safe. Anger does not make my chest feel like it is splitting open from the inside. And for a second I think I hear him exhale, slow and steady, like he is holding himself together just as tightly as I am. Not until you listen, he says, and that does it. That pushes me over the edge, because he does not get to ask anything from me anymore. He lost that right the second he chose to say what he said that night, the second he stood there and let everyone else look at me like I was something disposable, something easy to throw away. You do not get to ask me for anything. I shoot back, my hand slamming flat against the door before I can stop myself, the sound echoing louder than I expect, and for a moment everything goes still, too. Still, like the entire world is holding its breath with me. And then, softer, almost careful, he says my name again, Ethan. And it is different this time, not pleading, not urgent, just steady, grounded in a way that makes my stomach twist because it reminds me of before, of the way he used to say it when things were simple, when I trusted him without thinking twice, when I never imagined I would be standing on opposite sides of a door like this, separated by something that feels impossible to fix. I messed up, he says, and I almost laugh, because that is the understatement of the year, because messed up does not even begin to cover what he did. Messed up does not explain why I still hear those words every time I close my eyes, why I stopped going to places I used to love, why I changed my routine just to avoid running into anyone who might remember. But the worst part, the part one hate the most, is that he sounds like he means it, like those 3 words cost him something real. And I press my forehead harder against the door, squeezing my eyes shut because I do not want to see his face even in my mind. Do not want to imagine the way he might be standing out there, tired, stubborn, refusing to leave. It does not matter. I whisper, quieter now, because the anger is slipping, and I need it. I need it to stay. It does not change anything. And this time when he answers, there is no hesitation at all, just quiet certainty that lands heavier than anything he has said so far. It changes everything for me. His words sit there between us, heavy and unmoving, like something that refuses to fade, no matter how much I want it to. And I hate that my first instinct is not to shut him down, but to ask why. Why now? Why after everything? Why after he made it so easy for everyone else to walk away from me like I did not matter? And I swallow that question before it can slip out, because I am not giving him that. I am not giving him the chance to explain, not when explanations come too late to fix anything. But silence stretches again, long enough that it starts to feel like a choice, like I am letting him stay by not forcing him to leave. And that realization makes my chest tighten, because I should tell him to go. I should end this. I should stop letting him stand out there like he still has a place in my life. And yet I do nothing. I stay exactly where I am, listening to the faint shift of his weight on the other side, the quiet sound of his breathing, steady but not calm, like he is holding himself together by force. And then he speaks again, lower this time, like he knows he is running out of chances. I did not do it to hurt you, he says, and something inside me snaps at that, sharp and immediate, because that is the worst possible thing he could say. That is the one line that makes everything feel even more twisted. You expect me to believe that, I say, my voice coming out colder than I feel, because underneath the anger there is something else, something I do not want to name, something that sounds dangerously close to doubt, and I cannot afford doubt, not with him, never with him. I do not expect anything, he replies, quick, almost like he is afraid I will shut him out completely if he pushes too hard. I just need you to know it was not what it looked like. And I let out a short, humorless breath at that, because of course it looked exactly like what it was. It looked like betrayal, like humiliation, like the moment someone you trusted decided you were not worth protecting anymore. And I press my hand harder against the door, as if that can keep his words from getting any closer. I saw it. I say, quieter now, because the memory is there whether I want it or not, bright and sharp and impossible to ignore. I heard it, Lucas, every word. And saying his name feels wrong and familiar at the same time, like something I have not allowed myself to do in days. And there is a pause on the other side, not empty, not distant, just waiting, like he is choosing his next words carefully, like he knows one wrong move will make me walk away for good. Then you saw what I wanted you to see, he says finally, and that makes my breath catch, just for a second, because that does not make sense. It does not fit with what happened. It does not fit with the way he looked at me that night, distant and unreadable and completely unlike the person I thought I knew. And I shake my head even though he cannot see it, because I am not letting him rewrite this. I am not letting him turn something that clear into something complicated. Stop, I say, firmer now, pulling back from the door like distance might help me think. You do not get to twist it into something else just because you showed up here. And I take a step back, then another, creating space, creating air, trying to remember what it feels like not to be pulled in every direction at once. But his next words follow me anyway, quiet but unshakable, cutting through everything I am trying to hold on to. Then open the door and tell me to leave while you are looking at me. And I freeze, because that is different. That is not a request, not exactly. It is a challenge, a quiet one, but real. And I hate how quickly my heart starts racing at the thought of it, at the idea of facing him again, of seeing his expression, of confirming once and for all that there is nothing left between us. And I stand there in the middle of my apartment, staring at the door like it is something dangerous, something that could change everything the second I touch it. And for the first time since he started knocking, I am not sure which outcome I am more afraid of. I stare at the door like it is something alive, like it is waiting for me to make the wrong move, and my pulse is loud in my ears, too loud, like it is trying to drown out everything else, including him, including the steady presence on the other side that refuses to disappear no matter how long I stay silent. And I tell myself this is simple, that all I have to do is walk over, open it, and tell him to leave. That is it. That is all. But my feet do not move, not at first, because nothing about this feels simple anymore. Not when he sounds like that. Not when he keeps saying things that do not match the version of him I have been holding on to since that night. The version that made it easier to hate him, easier to walk away, easier to pretend that what we had before did not matter, and I drag a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly as I force myself forward one step, then another, until I am back in front of the door again, close enough to reach out, close enough that I can feel the faint coolness of the wood against my fingertips. And I hesitate, just for a second, because this is the point of no return. The moment where everything either stays exactly the same or shifts into something I am not ready to deal with. And I hate that he put me here. I hate that he always knew exactly how to push me to the edge of a decision I do not want to make. Say it. His voice comes through, quieter now, not pressing, not forcing, just there, like he is giving me the space to walk away if I want to. And that should make it easier. It should, but it does not. It makes it worse, because it reminds me of how he used to be, patient in a way that felt effortless, like he could wait me out forever if he had to. And I swallow hard, my hand hovering over the handle. You want me to say it to your face? I murmur, more to myself than to him. And there is a faint shift on the other side, like he stepped back just enough to give me room, like he is already preparing for whatever I am about to do. And that thought sends another wave of frustration through me, sharp and immediate, because he does not get to be calm about this. He does not get to stand there like he is ready to accept whatever I decide. Not after he took that choice away from me before. Not after he made the decision for both of us without asking. And my fingers finally close around the handle before I can stop myself. The metal cool and solid in my grip, grounding in a way nothing else has been for the past few minutes. And I hesitate again, just for a breath, just long enough for doubt to creep in, whispering that this is a mistake. That opening this door will not fix anything, that it might make everything worse. But something else pushes back just as hard, something stubborn and restless that refuses to let this end with a barrier between us. And before I can overthink it again, I turn the handle, slow at first, then all at once, the click louder than it should be, the door pulling inward as the space between us disappears in an instant. And there he is, exactly where I knew he would be, standing just outside like he has not moved at all, like he has been rooted to that spot since the moment he arrived. And for a second, everything else fades. The hallway, the late hour, the quiet of the building, all of it blurs into the background because all I can focus on is him. On the way he looks at me like he has been waiting for this exact moment, like he is memorizing every detail. And I hate how familiar it feels, how easy it would be to fall back into something I already know is dangerous. So I straighten, forcing distance into my posture even if there is barely any physical space between us, forcing my voice to stay steady even as everything inside me is anything but. And I meet his gaze head on, refusing to look away first. Leave, I say, clear and firm, because that is what I am supposed to do. That is what I told myself I would do. And for the first time since this started, there is no door between us, no barrier, nothing to soften the impact of what comes next. Just the two of us standing there, face to face, and the undeniable truth that neither of us is walking away unchanged. He does not move, not immediately, and that alone tells me more than anything he could say, because Lucas Hayes has never been the kind of person who hesitates, not in front of people, not in private, not even when everything is on the line. And yet here he is, standing just outside my door like he is waiting for permission to exist in the same space as me. Like one wrong step might make me disappear again. And I hate how that realization lands somewhere deep in my chest, quiet and uncomfortable. No, he says finally, and it is not loud, not defiant, just steady, like a fact he has already accepted. And something about that makes my jaw tighten because I knew he would not leave, I knew it the second I opened the door, but hearing it out loud still feels like a challenge I am not sure how to win. I said leave. I repeat, sharper this time, holding his gaze even when it would be easier to look away, even when it would be easier to pretend none of this is happening. But he just watches me, eyes searching in a way that makes it hard to breathe, like he is trying to find something in my expression that I am not willing to give him. You can hate me, he says, voice low, controlled, like he is choosing every word carefully. But do not pretend this does not matter. And that hits harder than I expect, not because I agree, but because I want to deny it, because I need to deny it. And I cross my arms, creating distance even though he is already too close. It does not matter, I insist. Even as the words feel thinner than before, even as something inside me shifts uncomfortably at the way he looks at me, like he knows I am lying, like he has always known when I am lying. And that thought makes irritation spike again, sharp and defensive. You made sure of that. I add, quieter but more pointed, because if I can push him back, if I can remind him of what he did, maybe this will feel simple again. Maybe this will go back to being black and white instead of whatever this is now. But instead of reacting the way I expect, instead of flinching or arguing or shutting down, he nods. Once, slow and deliberate, like he is accepting it, like he has already replayed that moment in his head more times than I have. I know, he says, and there is no defense in it, no excuse, just acknowledgement. And that throws me off more than anything else, because I was ready for a fight. I was ready for him to push back, to justify himself, to give me a reason to stay angry. But this quiet acceptance, this refusal to argue, it leaves me with nowhere to put all the frustration I have been holding on to, and I shift my weight, restless, my fingers curling slightly at my sides as I try to regain control of the situation. Then why are you here? I ask, the question slipping out before I can stop it, before I can remind myself that I do not care, that I should not care, but it is too late. It is already out there, and for a second something flickers in his expression, something sharp and real, like relief mixed with something heavier, something that looks a lot like honesty. And he takes a small step forward, not crossing the threshold, not yet, but close enough that I can feel the shift in the air between us, the space tightening in a way that makes it impossible to ignore him, impossible to pretend this is not happening. Because you are still here, he says simply, and that answer is not what I expected. It is not an explanation, not really, but it lands anyway, heavier than it should, because it is not about excuses or reasons. It is about me, about the fact that I did not disappear, that I am still standing here in front of him despite everything. And I hate how that makes my chest tighten again, hate how it pulls at something I have been trying to bury since that night, and I shake my head, taking a small step back as if distance will help, as if space will make this easier. That does not change anything, I say, but this time there is less certainty in it, less edge, and he notices. Of course he does, his gaze softening just slightly, not in a way that feels like pity, but in a way that feels worse, like understanding. It changes everything. He repeats, quieter now, like he is not trying to convince me anymore, just stating what he believes. And for a moment neither of us moves, neither of us speaks, just standing there in the doorway with the night stretching out behind him and my apartment at my back, caught between leaving things exactly as they are and stepping into something I do not fully understand. And I realize with a sudden, uncomfortable clarity that opening the door did not end anything. It just made everything harder to ignore. The silence stretches again, but it is different now, heavier, like something invisible has shifted between us and neither of us knows how to step around it without breaking something else. And I can feel it in the way he is looking at me, not pushing, not demanding, just there, like he has decided he is not leaving no matter what I say. And that realization settles uncomfortably in my chest, because it means this is not going to end with one conversation. It means he is here for something, more than an apology, and I do not know if I am ready for that. You should not be here, I say after a moment, quieter this time, because the sharp edge from before is fading whether I want it to or not, and I hate that. I hate that my anger is slipping, that it is not as solid as it felt when the door was still closed, when I could pretend he was just a voice on the other side and not a person standing right in front of me, real and impossible to ignore. I know, he answers, almost immediately, like he has already accepted that too. And there is something about the way he says it that makes it hard to argue. Because he is not trying to justify himself, not trying to twist it into something else. He is just here. And that is somehow worse, because it leaves me with nothing to push against, nothing to fight except my own reaction. And I shift slightly, the cool air from the hallway brushing against my skin, reminding me that I am still standing in the doorway, still holding this space open between us like I have not decided what to do with it. And that thought makes my stomach tighten, because I should close it. I should end this. I should not let him stand there any longer. But my hand does not move. It stays at my side like it is waiting for a different decision. And I look at him again. Really look this time. Noticing things I have been trying not to see. The way his shoulders are tense like he has been standing here longer than I thought. The faint crease between his brows that was not there before. The quiet exhaustion in his eyes that he is not even trying to hide. And I hate that I notice. Hate that part of me still reads him this easily, like nothing has changed, like I did not spend the last week trying to forget every detail about him. How long were you out here? I asked before I can stop myself, the question slipping out softer than I intend, and for a second he looks surprised. Just a flicker, but enough that I catch it, enough that I realize he did not expect me to ask anything at all. Does it matter? He replies. But there is no deflection in it, just a quiet honesty that makes it clear he is not trying to avoid the answer, and that annoys me more than it should, because it puts the choice back on me, makes me decide whether I want to care or not, and I hesitate, just for a second, before shaking my head slightly, more to myself than to him. No, I say, even though the word feels wrong the second it leaves my mouth, even though I already know it is not true, because if it did not matter, I would not have asked, and he seems to understand that, his gaze softening just a fraction, not enough to make it obvious, but enough that I feel it, like a shift in the air between us, subtle but real, and I look away for the first time since opening the door, breaking eye contact because it is suddenly too much, because standing here like this feels too close to something I am not ready to face, and I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself, trying to remember why I was so certain just a few minutes ago, why I thought this would be simple, why I believed I could just open the door and tell him to leave without anything changing, and I realize now how wrong that was, how impossible that was from the start, because nothing about him has ever been simple, nothing about us has ever been easy, and the moment I opened that door, I stepped back into something I have not figured out how to walk away from yet, and I tightened my arms slightly, grounding myself in the present, forcing my voice to stay level even as everything else feels uncertain. You said you wanted me to listen, I say finally, glancing back at him just long enough to meet his eyes again, so talk. And the words hang there between us, heavier than they should be, because this is it. This is the moment where whatever he says next is either going to change everything or confirm that nothing ever will. And for the first time since he started knocking, I am not sure which outcome I want. For a moment he does not say anything, and that alone makes my pulse pick up again, because Lucas Hayes has never struggled for words, not with anyone, not with me. And yet now he just stands there, looking at me like he is weighing something heavier than a simple explanation, like whatever he is about to say matters more than getting me to forgive him. And I do not know why that unsettles me as much as it does. That night, he starts finally, his voice steady but quieter than before, like he is keeping it contained on purpose, and I feel my shoulders tense immediately, my body reacting before my mind can catch up, because I do not want to go back there. I do not want to relive it. But I do not stop him either. I just stand there, arms crossed, waiting. You think I chose that? He continues, and something about the way he says it makes me frown slightly, because there is no defensiveness in it, no attempt to shift blame, just a statement that feels incomplete, like it is only part of something bigger, and I shake my head once, sharp. I saw you choose it. I cut in, because I need to ground this. I need to hold on to what I know is real, what I know happened. And his gaze does not waver, not even for a second. No, he says, and there is something firm in it now. Something that was not there before, not aggressive, not forceful, just certain, and that catches me off guard, because this is the first time he has pushed back, the first time he has contradicted me directly, and I feel my chest tighten at the shift, at the sudden weight of his attention. You saw what I had to do, he adds, and the words land differently this time, heavier, sharper, like they are meant to cut through everything I have been holding on to. and I open my mouth to argue, to shut it down before it gets any further. But he steps in just slightly, not crossing into my space completely, just enough that it pulls my focus back to him, anchors me in the moment whether I want it or not. If I had not said it there, he continues, his voice dropping lower, more controlled. It would have been worse later, and that makes no sense. It does not fit. It does not line up with anything I remember. And frustration spikes again, fast and defensive. Nothing about that helped. I shoot back, because that is the truth I know, that is the reality I lived through. And he exhales slowly, like he expected that, like he has already heard this argument in his head 100 times. I know it does not look like it, he says, and there is a flicker of something in his expression now, something tighter, something closer to strain. But you were not the only one people were watching that night. And that makes me pause, just for a second, because that detail, that small shift in perspective, it is not something I considered, not something I wanted to consider, and I narrow my eyes slightly, trying to piece together what he is saying, trying to understand how that changes anything. What does that even mean? I ask, quieter now, because the certainty I had before is slipping, replaced by something else, something uncertain and unwelcome. And he studies me for a moment before answering, like he is deciding how much to say, like there is still something he is holding back. And that realization makes my stomach twist, because of course there is more. There is always more with him. Nothing is ever straightforward. Nothing is ever as simple as it looks. It means, he says carefully, each word measured, deliberate. If I had not made it clear right then that there was nothing between us, they would have kept pushing until there was, and I blink at that. The words settling in a way I am not ready for, because that is not what I expected. That is not the version of that night I have been replaying over and over again. And I shake my head instinctively, trying to reject it, trying to push it away before it takes root. That is not an excuse, I say, but it sounds weaker now, less certain, and he nods again. Like he is not trying to make it one. It is not, he agrees, and there is no hesitation in it, no attempt to soften the impact. But it is the truth, and that hangs there between us, heavy and unyielding, because for the first time since this started, I am not just angry, I am confused, and I hate that even more, hate the way it cracks something open that I have been trying to keep sealed, hate the way it makes me question the version of events I have been holding onto so tightly, and I stand there, caught between what I remember and what he is telling me now, realizing with a slow, uncomfortable certainty that this conversation is not going to end the way I thought it would. The words linger in the air long after he says them, heavy and disorienting, like the ground beneath me has shifted just enough to throw off my balance. And I hate it. I hate how quickly my certainty starts to crack, how something as simple as a different perspective can unravel something I thought was solid, something I built my anger on. Because anger is easier when it is clean, when it has clear edges, when there is no room for doubt. But now there is doubt, quiet and persistent, slipping into places I have been trying to keep sealed. You are saying you did that for me. I say slowly, each word careful, measured, because I need to hear it clearly. I need to understand exactly what he is claiming before I let it sink in any further. And he does not hesitate this time, does not look away or soften it. Yes, he answers, simple and direct, and that should make it easier to reject. It should make it easier to push back, but it does not, because there is something in the way he says it that feels grounded, like he is not trying to convince me, just stating something he has already accepted, and I shake my head again, more forceful this time, stepping back slightly as if distance will help me think, will help me separate what he is saying from what I remember. That does not make sense, I say, because it does not, it cannot, not when I can still hear the tone of his voice from that night, still see the way people reacted, the way everything changed in an instant, and he watches me closely, not interrupting, not pushing, just letting me process, and that silence makes it worse, because it gives my thoughts too much room to move, too much space to start connecting things I do not want to connect. They were already talking, he says after a moment, his voice steady but quieter now, like he is stepping carefully through something fragile, about you, about us, about things that were not true. And I frown slightly at that, because I remember whispers, I remember glances, but I never thought they mattered, never thought they could turn into something bigger, something that required that. And I cross my arms tighter, defensive even as uncertainty creeps in. So you decided to make it true. I say, sharper than I intend, because the logic still feels wrong, still feels like a stretch I am not ready to accept. And he shakes his head immediately, a small movement but firm. No, he says, and there is a tension in his voice now, something more exposed than before. I made it final. And that stops me, because that word, final, lands differently. It does not carry the same weight as betrayal. It carries something else, something colder, something more calculated, and I do not know what to do with that. Do not know how to fit it into the version of that night I have been replaying over and over again. And I look at him, really look this time, searching for something that will tell me this is not real, that this is just another attempt to fix something that cannot be fixed. But all I find is that same steady expression, that same quiet certainty that has been there since. I open the door, and it unsettles me more than anything else, because if he were lying, it would be easier. If he were trying to manipulate me, I would see it, I would recognize it. But this feels different, and I hate that I cannot immediately reject it. You could have told me. I say finally, the words slipping out softer than I expect, because beneath everything else there is something else now, something closer to hurt than anger. You could have warned me, and that is the part that matters. That is the part that does not change no matter what his reason was. And for the first time since this started, something in his expression shifts, not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough that I do, enough that I see the brief flicker of regret he has been keeping contained. I know, he says quietly, and there is no defense in it, no attempt to argue, just acknowledgement. And that lands harder than any explanation, because it means he knew, it means he understood what it would do to me and chose it anyway. And the realization settles heavily in my chest, pulling me in two directions at once. One side clinging to the anger that has been keeping me steady, the other starting to question whether there is more to this than I allowed myself to see. And I stand there in the doorway, caught between those two versions of the same moment, realizing that no matter what the truth is, it does not erase what happened, but it might change what it meant. And I am not sure I am ready for that. The weight of his admission settles into the space between us. And for a moment, I cannot tell which part of it bothers me more. The fact that he might be telling the truth, or the fact that even if he is, it does not undo what it felt like to stand there that night and hear him say those words like they meant nothing, like I meant nothing. And I press my lips together, trying to steady myself, trying to hold on to something solid in the middle of all this uncertainty, but everything feels blurred. Now, edges softened in a way that makes it harder to stay angry in the same clean, certain way I was before, and I hate that. I hate how easily things start to shift when he is involved. So you decided for me. I say after a second, quieter but sharper, because that is the part one cannot let go of. That is the part that still feels like a betrayal no matter how he frames it. And his jaw tightens just slightly, the first visible reaction he has shown that feels like resistance, like something he does not want to admit but cannot deny. I did, he says, and there is no hesitation in it, no attempt to soften the impact, just the truth laid out plainly between us, and that should make it easier. It should give me something to push against again, something to hold on to, but instead it just deepens the tension in my chest, because it confirms what I already knew while complicating everything else. And I look away for a moment, glancing down the empty hallway as if there might be an escape there, as if stepping away from this doorway could somehow reset everything back to before he showed up. But it does not. Nothing does, because he is still here, still close enough that I can feel the presence of him even when I am not looking directly at him. And I let out a slow breath, dragging my gaze back to him despite myself. You do not get to decide what is best for me. I continue, my voice steadier now, grounded in something that feels more real than the confusion swirling underneath it. And he nods once again, like he has already accepted that too, like he has been waiting for me to say it out loud. I know, he says, and there is something different in his tone now, something that feels heavier, like he is not just acknowledging it but carrying it. And I study him for a second, trying to understand what that means, trying to figure out why he is here if he already knows all of this. If he already understands that nothing he says can change what happened, then why are you still here? I ask again, because that question has not gone away, it has only gotten louder, more insistent. And this time he does not answer right away, his gaze holding mine in a way that feels intentional, like he wants me to See whatever it is before he says it. And that makes my stomach tighten again. Anticipation mixing with something I do not want to name. Because you deserve the truth, he says finally, and the words land differently than I expect. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just steady, like a quiet promise he has already decided to keep whether I accept it or not. And I frown slightly at that, because I am not sure I believe him. Not completely, but I also cannot ignore the way he is standing there. The way he has not tried to step inside, has not tried to push past the boundary I set even when he refused to leave, and that contradiction pulls at me, makes it harder to categorize him the way I want to, the way I need to, and I shift slightly, my grip on the door loosening without me realizing it, the tension in my shoulders easing just enough that I notice the change, and I hate that too. Hate how quickly my body responds, even when my mind is still trying to hold the line. You should have told me before. I say, softer now, because that is still the part that matters most, the part that lingers no matter what else changes, and this time when he nods, it is slower, heavier, like the weight of that regret is something he has been carrying long before he showed up here. I should have. He agrees, and there is nothing else in it. No excuse, no explanation, just the acknowledgement of a mistake that cannot be undone. And for a moment we just stand there, the space between us quieter than before but not empty, filled with something unresolved, something that feels like it is building toward a point I cannot quite see yet. And I realize with a slow, uneasy clarity that this conversation is not about proving who is right or wrong anymore. It is about something else entirely, something I am not sure I am ready to face. Because if he is telling the truth, if even part of what he is saying is real, then it means I have been holding on to only half the story, and I do not know what to do with the other half now that it is right in front of me. Something in the air shifts again, quieter this time but heavier, like we have crossed an invisible line without realizing it. And I can feel it in the way neither of us moves, the way the space between us no longer feels like a barrier but something else, something thinner, something fragile. And I hate how aware I am of him standing there, how easy it would be to close the door and end this, and how I still have not done it. The truth does not fix anything, I say after a moment, my voice steadier than I feel, because I need to remind both of us of that. I need to anchor this in something real before it slips too far into something I cannot control. And he nods slowly, like he expected that, like he has already accepted it. I know, he says, and there is no argument in it, no attempt to push back, just that same quiet certainty that has been there since the beginning. And that unsettles me more than anything else, because it means he is not here to win. He is not here to prove a point. He is here because he chose to be. Because he decided this mattered enough to come back again and again even when I gave him no reason to believe I would listen, and I do not know what to do with that. Then why keep showing up? I ask, softer now, because the question has shifted. It is no longer about anger or blame. It is about understanding something I cannot quite reach yet. And this time he does not hesitate at all, his answer immediate, like he has been waiting for me to ask it this way. Because leaving would have been easier, he says, and that catches me off guard, because it is not what I expected, it is not an explanation, not really, but it feels honest in a way that makes it harder to dismiss, and I frown slightly, studying him, trying to see if there is anything behind it, anything hidden, but there is nothing except that same steady gaze, that same refusal to look away. And you do not do easy, I say before I can stop myself, the words slipping out with a familiarity that makes my chest tighten. Because that is something I used to say before, something I used to know about him without question, and for a second something shifts in his expression, something softer, something that looks almost like recognition. Not when it comes to you, he replies, and the words land quietly but deeply, like they were not meant to be dramatic, just true, and I hate how that affects me. Hate the way it pulls at something I thought I had buried, something I told myself did not exist anymore after that night, and I look away again, breaking the moment before it can settle too deeply, before it can change something I am not ready to change. You do not get to say things like that now. I mutter, more to myself than to him. But he hears it anyway, of course he does, and when I glance back at him, there is something different in his expression again, not regret, not exactly, but something closer to determination, like he has already decided he is not backing down from this, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. I am not saying it to change what happened, he says, his voice low but steady. I am saying it because it did not stop being true, and that makes my breath catch, just for a second, because that is not what I expected, that is not what I prepared for, and I hate how easily it slips past my defenses, how it lands somewhere deeper than I want it to, and I shake my head instinctively, trying to push it away, trying to re-establish the distance I need to keep this under control. You do not get to decide that either. I say quickly, because I need to hold on to something. I need to draw a line somewhere before everything blurs together completely. And he nods again, slower this time, like he understands exactly what I am doing, exactly why I am pushing back. I know. He repeats, but this time there is something else in it, something quieter, something that feels less like agreement and more like acceptance of whatever I choose next, and that unsettles me more than anything he has said so far, because it means the next move is mine. It means he has said what he came here to say, and now he is waiting, not forcing, not pushing, just waiting, and I stand there in the doorway, caught between closing the door and ending this before it gets any more complicated, or stepping back and letting him in. And for the first time since this started, I realize that neither option feels simple anymore. Neither option feels safe, and that scares me more than anything else. The silence does not break this time. It settles, stretches, wraps around us in a way that feels almost deliberate, like the world has stepped back just enough to let this moment exist on its own, and I stand there with my hand still resting against the edge of the door, aware of how easy it would be to close it, how simple that motion is compared to everything else, and yet I do not move, because something inside me is holding me here, something stubborn and restless that refuses to let this in the way I planned, and I hate that feeling. Hate how unfamiliar it is, how it does not fit into the clean, controlled version of this situation I have been trying to maintain since he showed up. You said what you needed to say, I tell him after a moment, my voice quieter now, but still steady, because I need to regain some control over this. I need to remind myself that I am the one who decides what happens next. And his gaze does not waver, not even slightly. I did. He agrees, and there is no expectation in it, no push for more. Just acknowledgement. And that makes it harder somehow, because there is nothing to push back against, nothing to argue with, just the weight of everything that has already been said hanging between us, and I nod once, more to myself than to him, as if that settles something, as if that makes the next step obvious. But it does not. It only makes the quiet feel louder, the space feel smaller, the moment feel heavier than it should, and I shift slightly, my fingers tightening briefly against the door before relaxing again. Then you should go, I say, and this time it is not sharp, not angry, just final, or at least it is supposed to be. It is supposed to sound like the end of this conversation, the end of whatever this is, but the second the words leave my mouth, I know they do not feel final at all. They feel incomplete, like something important has been left unsaid. And I hate that realization. Hate how it lingers even as I try to ignore it. And for a second I think he is going to argue. I think he is going to push again. But he does not. He just watches me, steady and quiet, like he is waiting for something I have not given him yet. And that look, that patience, it pulls at something in me that I have been trying to keep locked down. Something that makes it harder to follow through on what I just said. If that is what you want, he says finally, and there is no challenge in it, no resistance, just acceptance. And that should make it easier. It should make it simple. He is giving me exactly what I asked for. He is stepping back, creating distance, respecting the boundary I set. And yet the moment he shifts, the moment he actually starts to move like he is going to leave, something in my chest tightens unexpectedly, sharp and immediate, and I do not understand it. Do not understand why that feels worse than him staying, worse than him refusing to leave like he did before, and I stand there frozen for a second, watching him take that step back into the hallway, watching the space between us widen again, and suddenly it feels wrong. It feels too easy, too clean, like we are about to go back to pretending none of this happened, like I am about to close the door and go back to a version of my life that felt stable, but also empty in a way I did not notice until now. And the thought hits me before I can stop it, before I can push it away. What if this is it? What if this is the last time I see him standing here? What if I let him walk away and I never get answers to the questions that are still forming, still unresolved, and my hand tightens slightly against the door again, my breath catching just enough to make me aware of it, and I hesitate, just for a second, just long enough for the moment to stretch, for the possibility of letting him leave to feel heavier than it should, and before I can fully think it through, before I can talk myself out of it, I hear my own voice break. Through the quiet, softer than anything I have said so far, but impossible to take back once it is out there, Lucas. And he stops immediately, not turning around yet, just pausing like he is waiting, like he knew there was something else coming, and I stand there in the doorway, caught between pulling the words back and saying what is actually on my mind, realizing too late that telling him to leave might not have been the ending I thought it would be. My voice hangs in the air after I say his name, softer than I intended, but it is enough, it is more than enough, because he stops completely, every movement halting like the moment itself has frozen around us, and for a second I think maybe I made a mistake, maybe I should have let him go, maybe calling him back will only make everything more complicated than it already is, but it is too late now. The word is already out there, and I cannot pretend I did not say it, cannot pretend I do not. Still have something left to ask, and slowly, carefully, he turns back to face me, not rushing, not pushing, just meeting my gaze again like he was waiting for this, like he knew I was not done, and that realization sends a quiet, uneasy feeling through me, because it means he understands me better than I want him to, even now, even after everything. What? He says, not impatient, not defensive, just open, like he is giving me space to speak without forcing it, and I hesitate, the words sitting heavy in my chest, because I am not sure how to say them, not sure how to ask something that feels like it matters more than anything else we have talked about so far, and I take a slow breath, trying to steady myself, trying to find the right place to start. If you knew, I begin, my voice quieter now, more uncertain than I wanted to be. If you knew it would hurt me, why did you not trust me enough to tell me the truth before? And there it is, the question that has been sitting underneath everything else, the one that has not gone away no matter how much he has explained, because it is not about what happened anymore. It is about what came before it, about what he chose not to do, and I hold his gaze as I say it, refusing to look away, because I need to see his reaction. I need to know if there is something real behind all of this, or if I am just letting myself get pulled back into something that will break again. And for the first time since this conversation started, he does not answer right away, his expression shifting slightly, not dramatically, but enough that I catch it, enough that I see the hesitation he has been holding back finally surface. And that alone tells me this matters. This question matters in a way the others did not. And I feel my chest tighten as the silence stretches, waiting, watching, trying to read him the same way I used to, trying to understand what is going on behind that calm exterior. And when he finally speaks, his voice is lower than before, quieter, but more exposed, like he is stepping into something he cannot take back once it is said. Because I did not think you would stay. Admits, and the words hit harder than anything else he has said tonight, because they are not what I expected, not what I prepared for. And for a second I just stare at him, trying to process that, trying to understand how that fits into everything else, how that connects to the version of him I thought I knew. Stay. I repeat, the word feeling strange on my tongue, like I am testing it, like I am trying to figure out what he means by it, and he nods once, his gaze steady but not guarded. Anymore. If I told you what was coming, if I told you what people were planning, you would have stepped in, you would have tried to fix it, and that would have made you a target, he says, each word careful, deliberate, like he has thought about this too many times already, like he has gone over it again and again looking for a different outcome. I could not risk that. And I feel something shift again, deeper this time, something that makes it harder to breathe, because this is not about control or arrogance or thinking he knew better. This is about something else, something that sounds a lot like fear, and I hate that realization, hate. How it pulls at something inside me that I have been trying to ignore, because it means there is more here than just what I saw, more than just what I felt in that moment. And I take a small step back, needing space even though I have already let him closer than I planned. So you decided to lose me instead. I say, quieter now, because the anger is not as sharp anymore. It has shifted into something else, something heavier. And he does not deny it, does not look away, just meets my gaze and nods again, slower this time, like he understands exactly what that cost. I did, he says, and there is no defense in it, no attempt to make it sound better, just the truth laid out plainly between us. And for a moment neither of us moves, neither of us speaks, just standing there with that reality hanging in the air, because now it is not just about what he did, it is about why he did it. And I am left with something I did not expect, something I do not know how to handle, because if he chose to hurt me to protect me, then everything I thought I understood about that night is incomplete, and I do not know what to do with that kind of truth. The truth sits between us, heavy and unmoving. And for the first time since this started, I do not know what to say, because everything I had prepared, every argument, every defense, every reason I told myself to keep him out, none of it fits the same way anymore. None of it feels as solid as it did when I thought I understood what happened. And I hate that. I hate how quickly things can change when one piece shifts. When one explanation reframes everything I've been holding on to. And I take a slow breath, trying to steady myself, trying to find something familiar to anchor to, but all I find is him, standing there, not moving, not pushing, just waiting, like he has already said everything he came here to say, and now the rest is up to me. And that realization settles deeper than anything else, because it means this is not about him anymore. It is about what I choose to do with what he has given me, and I am not sure I am ready for that kind of responsibility. You should have let me decide. I say finally, my voice quieter now, not sharp, not angry, just honest, because that is the part that still matters, the part that has not changed no matter how much everything else has shifted. And he nods, slow and certain, like he agrees with that completely, like he has already accepted it long before I said it out loud. I know, he replies, and there is something in his tone now that feels different, something that sounds less like defense and more like understanding. And I study him for a second, trying to see if there is anything else there, anything hidden, but there is nothing except that same steady presence, that same refusal to look away, and I realize with a quiet, uncomfortable clarity that he is not asking for forgiveness, not directly. He is not trying to erase what happened or convince me to forget it. He is just here, offering me the truth and leaving the rest in my hands. And that makes everything harder, because it means I cannot just reject him and walk away without thinking about it. It means I have to actually decide. And I hate how uncertain that makes me feel, how unfamiliar it is to stand in this space without a clear answer. And I glance down briefly, my fingers brushing against the edge of the door, as if grounding myself in something physical will help, as if it will make the decision clearer. But it does not. It only reminds me that I am still standing. Here, still holding the door open, still not choosing one way or the other. And I let out a slow breath, lifting my gaze back to him, meeting his eyes again, even though it would be easier not to, even though it would be easier to avoid whatever comes next. This does not fix anything. I repeat, softer this time, because I need him to understand that. I need to hold on to that boundary even as everything else shifts. And he nods again. No hesitation, no argument, just acceptance. I know, he says, and there is something steady in it, something that makes it clear he is not expecting anything more than this moment, not expecting me to suddenly change my mind or let him back. And like nothing happened. And that matters more than I want it to, because it means he understands the distance, understands the damage, and is still here anyway. And I hesitate, just for a second, just long enough for the weight of everything to settle into something clearer, something that feels less like confusion and more like a choice. And before I can overthink it, before I can retreat back into the safety of shutting him out completely, I shift slightly to the side, not a full step, not an invitation exactly, but enough to change the space between us, enough to break the clean line of the doorway that has been separating us this entire time. And his gaze flickers for just a second, catching the movement, understanding it immediately even though I have not said anything out loud. And I do not look away this time. I hold his gaze, steady despite everything still unresolved between us. Because this is not forgiveness, this is not a solution, this is just something else. Something uncertain but real. And I take a slow breath, my voice quieter than it has been all night, but no less clear. I am not saying you can come back. I tell him, because that needs to be said, because I need to define this before it becomes something I cannot control. But I am also not closing the door. And the words settle between us, simple but heavy with everything they imply, everything they leave open. And for a moment neither of us moves, neither of us speaks, just standing there. in that space that is no longer fully closed and not quite open either. And I realize with a quiet, steady certainty that this is not the end of anything. It is just the beginning of something I have not figured out yet.